Welcome everybody to Adelaide Oval and the Intrapreneurship Forum. On behalf of IPAA and all attending, I'd like to start by acknowledging this land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. In particular, we acknowledge the Kawandilla band, whose home included where Tantanya Wama, Adelaide Oval, now stands. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We also pay respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting, attending from other parts of Australia. Good morning, my name is Tim Mayers. I'm wearing a hat today as an IPAA member, but in my spare time, I'm Director of Strategic Economics and Policy Coordination, Department of State Development. And this is Kristen Alford, who will be one of the co-MCs for the day. I'll introduce Kristen more formally later in the day. I'd like to thank you all for attending today's Intrapreneurship Forum, especially our impressive and distinguished group of speakers, and also the facilitators who will be sharing their insights and expertise today. I wish to acknowledge IPAA professional and corporate members, IPAA counsellors and IPAA partners PwC, Warman's Lawyers, Flinders University and Technology One. So how has it come to pass that we meet here today? There has in the past been repeated calls to arms within and across the public sector organisations to work across the white space, join up government, break down the silos. You've probably heard these sorts of expressions in various forms over your working careers. The call has been seen as a means to unlock innovation, improve policy and operational effectiveness, and deliver increased levels of citizen satisfaction with government and its services. But regardless of the edicts from on high, it takes the actions of individuals, led by vision, implemented with skill and with access to resources to achieve this aspiration. A group of like-minded public sector professionals at an informal workshop considered that the call to arms is best achieved through the adoption and application of what might be described as an entrepreneurial mindset and skill set. Someone who facilitates change from within organisational systems, the entrepreneur. That group, the steering group of which are listed in the back of your programs today, planned today's event to explore, reflect upon and celebrate the role of the entrepreneur. The group also considered the day as one where we could be challenged, learn from one another and extend our networks. When better to do this than during Adelaide's inaugural Entrepreneurs Week. Thank you, IPAA, for sponsoring and providing logistical support to this event. Thank you, the audience and participants, for choosing to attend today. We hope you get as much value, energy and inspiration from the program as we, the steering committee, did in planning it. By the end of the day, we hope you have an enhanced sense of entrepreneurship, why it has an essential role in change within the public sector setting, and for facilitating broader change, adaptation and innovation in our organisations. We ask you just to acknowledge a few housekeeping matters, that you place your mobile phones on silent if you haven't already done so. Follow the signs if you're in need of restrooms. They are out that way and are clearly signposted. If there happens to be an emergency and we need to evacuate, please follow the Oval staff as they lead you outside. We would appreciate if you don't leave during presentations. If you need to leave, please do so between activities. And I think at Adelaide Oval, one of the etiquette is between overs, don't move you from your seat. Or only between overs, leave your seat. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Kristen, who will briefly run through the format for the day. Thank you.
Good, thanks Tim. I also wanted to just add a little thing to the purpose of the day, which, while Tim's talked about the need for innovation and change within government, I'm very keen for you to be energised and sparked by the day. What we find is the difference between people who are doing innovation work in government or looking for more innovative ways and people who have an entrepreneurial mindset is that you can't turn that entrepreneurial mindset off. It's a passion, or it's a calling, if you like, to try and challenge the system and to do things differently. It can be tiring. When you're facing challenges all the time. And this part of the purpose of this forum is to really provide you with the comfort or the validation that what you are doing is worth doing, to meet other people who are also struggling with similar challenges, but also to get inspired by people who are having successes. So think seriously about how you can apply this back in your work, but also think seriously about how it can energise and motivate you and help you get through some of those challenges you might be facing. The narrative of the day is really a journey from what is the context for entrepreneurship in government, which Tim has started to introduce, to where might we go in the future. So this morning's session we'll hear from a couple of people who are really talking about why is it necessary to have entrepreneurs within government? Why is it necessary to be pursuing innovation and change? We'll then look at a couple of sessions. So we've got 2 sessions for you to choose from. The session in this room will be a series of very short talks that I will MC, which 12-minute tasters, if you like, about things that have happened, and you'll get to hear some of the highlights and lowlights. So it's a really good chance to hear a broad section of activities all in one go. And in the other room, we'll have 2 deep dives where you'll hear a little bit more detail about 2 projects, and you'll be able to ask questions, and it will be more of a conference style. After lunch, I'm going to be presenting on a survey that many of you will have completed, which is what's it like to be an entrepreneur within government, and what are the sorts of things that we might look to change as we move forward to make that both easier and to make that more effective. And then we've got a session which really is very open, and that will take place in the back room. And we've got a number of people who are doing projects that are still active, and that's your opportunity to really pick their brains and have discussions about what they're doing and where they see it going. So we're leading from looking at projects that have happened to projects that are still emerging. And our final session this afternoon is really around looking forward to the future and what this might mean in terms of the practices you will need to pick up to deal with future aspects, but also thinking for yourself about what you might need to do when you go back to work. This isn't a standalone event. So Tim mentioned that a working group has been working on this for some time. That happened, actually, it's not some time at all. It's very, people within this group have been working in innovation and entrepreneurship for some time, but this group really got together after a workshop in November. And that workshop started to explore the idea of the entrepreneur, and there was enough energy and enthusiasm that within a couple of months, this event happened. I don't see this as the end, like we've succeeded now and this is entrepreneurship. This is really just the continuing of a conversation. So one of the things that I'm tasked with today is finding out what you want to do next. So if you found today inspiring or you found it interesting and you want to have more conversations, and I've had 3 conversations this morning where we've already said we need to talk about this more, so I'm expecting that to continue. If you have ideas, come and find me during the day and let me know what you would like to see, let me know if you would like to host something, let me know if you would like to organise something, and then by the end of the day we'll be able to not just celebrate a really enthralling and you know, a day filled with enthusiasm, but we'll have a clear plan for when we can meet again. So please enjoy yourselves. This morning is a number of presentations. This afternoon is very participatory. We've deliberately chosen a whole range of techniques to showcase these activities, so you won't be experiencing the same thing all day. It may feel confusing when you look at the program because we've got lots of options, but we know that most of you have already done or experienced these types of processes, so we're not expecting it to be difficult. Purposely designed like that so that you can also think about some of these presentation techniques or tools to take with you. So the whole day is designed with that range of experiences in mind, and I really hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Our next speaker probably needs no introduction, so I'll keep it real brief. Raymond Spencer, who's Chairman of the Economic Development Board and also the Chairman of the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, is probably the person most credentialed in South Australia to talk about entrepreneurship. Raymond.
As we live, we are transmitters of life. And when we fail to transmit life, life fails to flow through us. That is part of the mystery of sex. It is a flow onwards. Sexless people transmit nothing. And if as we work, we can transmit life into our work, life, still more life, rushes into us to compensate, to be ready. And we ripple with life through the days. Even if it is a woman making an apple dumpling or a man a stool, good is the stool. Content is the woman with fresh life rippling into her. Content is the man. Give and it shall be given unto you is still the truth about life. But giving life is not easy. It doesn't mean handing it out to some mean fool or letting the living dead eat you up. It means kindling the life quality where it is not, even if it's only in the whiteness of a washed pocket handkerchief. This poem by D.H. Lawrence expresses far more eloquently than I the passion and energy that entrepreneurs bring to organizations. I believe that South Australia is at a pivotal point in its history. This is a decade when it will be decided whether it's a new dawn or approaching dusk, whether South Australia continues to be the glowing example of one of the world's greatest places to live, or a 2030 Harvard case study entitled Lost Opportunity. It is a time for bold action, without which our children and our grandchildren will not enjoy the prosperity and the lifestyle that, frankly, you and I take for granted. And I'm convinced that institutionalizing a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship across the public sector, businesses, nonprofits, indeed all aspects of South Australia is absolutely central to the future prosperity of our state and to the well-being of all of us who are fortunate enough to live here. And as Thomas Friedman of the World is Flat fame states so clearly, in the globalization system, one of the most enduring and competitive advantages that a country, read state, can have today is a lean, effective, and honest civil service. In this room is a critical component of the state's strategic advantage. It starts with you. I guess what I want you to take away from today is that your organization can be innovative, but it takes you. You acting with entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial flair, being disciplined in your approach, working hard, taking risks, having a willingness to fail, but never to be defeated. Entrepreneurship starts with a change of attitude and consciousness at the individual level, but it is nurtured and evolved by the organization's culture. And it's innovation that's made this state and indeed this nation strong. And the font of innovation which comes from entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs has been part of the legacy that has brought us to where we are today. And I believe that entrepreneurship will be critical for our transformation. Not just business entrepreneurs, but public sector entrepreneurs, academic entrepreneurs, and social entrepreneurs. So what do I mean at the highest level by entrepreneur? You're going to have a whole discussion about this over the day. So let's go at, I just want to spend a few minutes at the very highest level. For me, entrepreneurship is kind of the bringing together or the synthesis of three things: creativity, solutions, and passion. Creativity, thinking out of the box to formulate ideas that create value and bring fresh and forward-thinking approaches to solving problems. Not fantasy or whimsy, but applying intellectual rigor to invent new ways to tackle the ever-changing problems we face. And solutions, the packaging of the creative idea into a real-world application and outcomes that have relevance, that are real, that people want, that people see its value and are willing to pay for and or get behind. Lots of ideas get born, but entrepreneurs know that disciplined execution is what turns ideas into practical solutions. Intrapreneurship is focused on outcomes and results, customer impact, and making a lasting difference to the way things get done. And passion. Creativity and solutions unleash energy in not only the entrepreneur, but all stakeholders involved: clients, employees, the society at large. Passion, unbounded energy to not give up when things do not work out as hoped. The energy to stay disciplined and focused on implementing and institutionalizing the solution. Times of crisis, and I believe we are in a time of crisis in this state, are the wellsprings of entrepreneurial break loose. Now, from where does an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur gain energy and power? I suggest there are 6 elements that combined are the source of entrepreneurial power. The first 3 represent kind of the more interior dimension: belief, values, and vision. And the second 3 are more external and visible dimensions: presence, behavior, and execution. Belief. Entrepreneurs know what they hold to be true. I believe there is a mystery at the essence of life that is absolutely unfathomable. I believe that all people are good and deserve equal respect. I believe that if you choose to make it happen, you can make it happen. All is possible. I believe a responsible life balances the paradoxical tension between ultimate freedom and unfettered obligation, and I believe the future is created by those who dare. What is important is not my beliefs, but that you know what you believe. And society as a whole regains consensus around a set of inclusive beliefs that undergird our economic, political, and social future. And I would suggest that one of the causes and the underlying causes of some of our current predicaments in the world and in Australia as well is that too many people have lost touch with their belief system, which is the bedrock of who we are as human beings. Values. Next is values. Declaring what it is that you won't compromise. In our company, we had 7 values that every associate was expected to understand. Values like we value respect for the individual, or we value honesty, integrity, and open and caring communication. These values formed the bond of commitment across the company, which was spread around the world in 10,000 people. Regardless of location, ethnic background, status in the company, economic level, or religious persuasion of the associate, these values bound this organization together. And it is especially important to have a clear set of values in an organization when you have a crisis or conflict, or when you want transformation. Values need to be in the forefront of everybody's mind to guide and contextualize the decision-making process. And the Premier and the Commissioner and the Change at SA group have outlined 8 core values for the public sector, which have been created with enormous levels of participation across the public sector. Service. We proudly serve the community and the government of South Australia. Professionalism. We strive for excellence. Trust. We have the confidence in the ability of others. Respect, we value every individual. Collaboration and engagement, we create solutions together. Honesty and integrity, we act truthfully, consistently and fairly. Courage and tenacity, we never give up. And sustainability, we work to get the best results for current and future generations of South Australians. These represent what is valued and what you will live by if you want to be successful as part of the South Australian public sector. Is this what you hold as most important as you show up to work each day, or as you come here to this conference? Third vision, picturing what we will achieve. As the old saying goes, if you don't know where you are going, any road will surely get you there. Being able to take a snapshot of where you want to be in 3 to 5 years is critical for contextualizing and defining what you need to do today. Vision is dynamic. It's not a goal to be accomplished in the first instant, but an image to strive for that is concrete and compelling. And the three that are more the external dimensions. Number 4, presence. How I manifest my beliefs. You know, presence has to do with how I present myself to the world in a way that directly reflects who I am and what I hold true. At the most mundane, it's obviously represented by how I dress and speak and present myself. But at the more subtle level, it is seen in how I relate to people. If I believe all people at their essence are good and deserve equal respect, do I look them in the eye when I'm talking to them? Do I pay equal attention to men and women in all interactions? Do I listen to everybody in the organization, from the lowest paid level or whatever you call it, to the CE? Sometimes great leaders are described as having charisma. All people have the potential to be charismatic. That's presence. By being conscious about how they present to the world and environment in which they operate. The fifth is behavior. How do I demonstrate my values? For me, organizational culture, the best image is a tree. Values are like the roots of a tree. You don't see the roots. Behaviors are like the branches and the leaves and the fruit. You do see that. And in the application of the public sector values, for every value, all 8, there are 3 behaviors that are expected from each individual that have been identified. There are 3 behaviors that each associate in the public sector can expect from the organization. And there are 3 behaviors that are taboos, or not to be tolerated. And whereas values remain consistent, obviously the behaviors can change and evolve, and the ones you want to emphasize from time to time can change. Do you know what it's being suggested that the behaviors are that you will embody if you want to be successful in this organization? So let's take a couple. Courage and tenacity. We never give up. A behavior or personal success habit is fearless, as one example, is fearlessly suggesting new ideas and different ways of doing things. Not sure why we had to have the word fearlessly in there. Kind of suggests maybe that there was an intimidation aspect in our culture in the past. An expectation you might have of the organization around this value is developing innovative leadership, doing events just like this. Developing innovative leadership capability to think differently about policy development, service delivery, and people management. And a taboo that's been stated is allowing rules and regulations to hinder progress or become an excuse for interaction or getting the desired outcome. Or another example, the value service. We proudly serve the community and the government of South Australia, a behaviour or personal success habit that's been identified as delivering timely services fairly, effectively and courteously to the South Australian public. An expectation you might have of the organisation is upholding the rights of citizens to access services and making access as simple as possible. And a taboo that's been stated is using a process or a procedure as an excuse for stalling or handballing an issue. There's been some phenomenal work done on this. The question around this area of behaviour is, has that work become institutionalised and operationalised so that it becomes the natural working habit of all 100,000 people who make up the public sector? And last, execution. How do I realise my vision? You know, you may have a clear vision, but without action, it's just a hallucination. It's about having a plan with objectives, milestones, actions, with a very clear what, when, where, who, and then doing the hard yards. And the 90-day projects have been a great innovation in this regard. But has that way of working become the natural way of working? So I suggest that the source of intrapreneurial power comes from being conscious of your beliefs, the alignment of your personal and organization's values and vision, and is enacted by the way we present ourselves, by the way we behave, and by what we do. Within any organization, a clearly understood ethical framework is critical for entrepreneurship, long-term success and sustainability. This is a powerful moment in South Australia's history, a time for innovation and a time to support individual entrepreneurs and teams who bring creativity, solutions, and passion to everything they do. You are the difference.
Thank you, Raymond, for that very stirring start to proceedings today, and I think there's a lot in there that we can identify and align ourselves with. The next two speakers are going to help us, I guess, get our minds around some of the changing environmental factors that we all operate in that perhaps give entrepreneurship an extra relevance in our workplaces. The first is Matthew Salia, who is the Director of the New Venture Institute based in Adelaide at Flinders University. It was established 18 months ago to continue building on Flinders University's enterprise focus by leveraging the university's significant resources to create and grow enterprises in South Australia. Matthew is passionate about innovation and disruption and the role those forces play in creating new value. Matthew has a broad experience in strategic and change management in the welfare, environmental, sports management fields and has created numerous internal entrepreneurial spin-outs in large organisations. Matthew is very actively involved in the startup community in Adelaide and Australia more broadly and serves as an advisor and non-executive board member for numerous startups in Sydney and Adelaide. Matthew Salia will be conducting our first address today, Partners in Entrepreneurship, New Opportunities and the Role of Networks and Connectors. Please join me in welcoming Matthew.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. I hope. Yes, it does. Now, in the spirit of what you're here to talk about today, I've thrown Tim and Renee a bit of a curveball in how I've organised it. And I'm going to ask Suhit Anatula, who's the Manager of Business Innovation at Taxi, to join me through this presentation to bring to life a bit of a case study on some of the themes I'll go through and some of the things that you've heard from Raymond this morning. So that's me. You've heard enough about me, and Suhit will be up shortly to talk about some of the wonderful processes Taxi have gone through. And NVI has been working really closely with Taxi on a range of initiatives, and we thought this was a great way to bring together the theme of what we're talking about: connectors, in the ecosystem that can help leverage some of the themes and ideas you'll hear today. So the overview for you as to what we're going through, that evolution that we've gone through. NVI is a part of a large institution. I think some of the themes and some of the ways that we've approached what we do will be really valuable. How expertise from taxi can be applied, the innovation learnings from some of that work that we've done, and an organisational engine concept that's working very well to help contextualise innovation and entrepreneurial change in large organisations. Some national and international examples, of course, to bring to life and to give you some thoughts on some of the ways that you may approach things, and the local case studies that really help contextualise what's possible in the dynamic environment that Raymond spelt out here in South Australia. And then what next? So, of course, there's work for you to do today. You've seen a bunch of different sessions, and you'll hear from a range of people. But of course, this is all about everyone here reflecting on what they are doing and how they are doing it. So, as I go through today, I want you to reflect on, and we're not going to call on anyone to answer this, so you can relax, but what you're currently doing that's innovative and entrepreneurial in your day-to-day work, when you turn up to the office in the morning, when you go out to events like this, when you leave the office at the end of the day, how do you reflect on whether the themes that we talk about around innovation and entrepreneurship are reflected in your actions, your behaviours, your interactions with others around you? So who are we? What is this about connectors, and what are the roles that we need to talk about in that? And how do NVI and Taxi play a role in that ecosystem? And we're two of many organisations that are out in the environment around South Australia and more broadly nationally that are doing a range of work to help large institutions, large organisations, corporate, not-for-profit, and indeed educational as Flinders University is, to make the most of the assets they have, to leverage those for innovative outcomes, and to see those thoughts of entrepreneurship and actions that come from them. So NVI is 18 months young. I've put old there, but we're a very new organisation, and we're a model for what we're here to talk about today. We are a startup in a challenging institutional environment. We've taken a very lean startup style approach. We've used the mechanisms that you would more commonly see in a startup in Silicon Valley than you would in a large higher education organisation. That's been achieved by ensuring we're in the commons. We don't live in one school, we don't live in one faculty or one department. We are across the whole university, and we operate agnostically almost across how we add value in the work that we do. We have high-level sponsorship, which means that I'm fortunate to report directly to the Vice-Chancellor, and that level of high sponsorship is absolutely critical to achieving some of the things we've been able to achieve to date. And I think indeed the 90-day projects were mentioned earlier, that's another example of where that high-level sponsorship, where that high-level motivation to achieve the outcomes is really essential to drive through this change. We have 3 strategic focus areas that you can see there: experiential education. How do we help students have a more holistic, greater experience that's vested in business and vested in live case studies? Business engagement. How do we provide a front door to a very complex and convoluted, sometimes institutional organisation that a university is? How do we provide a way for people from the public sector, from corporates, from the not-for-profit space to engage with the university and all that it has to offer? And of course, it's in our name, new venture creation. How do we help create and grow existing businesses through the work that we do? The university has a significant amount of latent potential within it, and our role at NVI is to unleash that latent potential to ensure that the creation of value is achieved in a very efficient way. We've been very opportunistic about what we've done, and that means we've worked with a range of organisations, and the work you'll hear about today with Taxi is one such example of that. And we've really push the university into a space where it hasn't been before, and that hasn't always been comfortable. And I think there's many reflections on that today that will resonate with the roles that some of you have in your organisations. And it's absolutely been critical to nurture not only the internal relationships and the people and the connections we make internally, but also externally, to connect with authenticity to that broader environment, to ensure that the value we create is able to be maximised, to be able to be scaled, to be able to be really realised for the benefit of multiple players. That internal part is very, very challenging. The university operates at a very different way to organisations that you may come across, and perhaps some commonalities with government departments and so on. But the benefit of making sure that you make connections across different areas of our university has been really, really critical. So a little bit about my background. You heard from Tim. I've worked in the not-for-profit space for a long time, and that was key, because my role in any of the roles that I've had previously is to be creating value from the assets within an organisation that traditionally doesn't know how to do that. So I've created 3 or 4 spin-outs within organisations that have diversified revenue streams and have applied the things that we have learnt through doing that into creating MVI. Innovation from the inside is really critical, changing the mindset, changing the culture, changing the way that people perceive how you interact and what value you can bring every day, every action, every activity. That ecosystem participation, it's very important to have legitimacy, authenticity in how you act within your internal and your external environments. And collaboration is key, making sure that you are collaborative in the way that you act and how you interact with those internal and external environments every day. Taxi's approach focus on creating solutions in a very similar way, and you'll hear from Chris, I can see Chris up the back, about some of their programs and how it uses those tools and methodologies to create change. So developing and spreading solutions and helping people and organisations innovate. It's a really important element to think about how that happens, and Taxi uses expertise to collaborate and partner with organisations through its services arm, and Suhit will talk a bit about how that came to life in a case study with the Office for the Ageing. There's 4 main elements to that, and you'll recognise the themes, and with any luck these themes will become much clearer through the day, and that's obviously design, business, social science, and most importantly, people, culture, behaviours. The way that those 3 things interact on the left is only enabled by the way that the behaviours and the culture of the people on the right that you see their work. And that's Taxi's underlying mission. How do you ensure that all of those aspects combine to create innovative solutions, create value where value was not previously seen? And that's really at the core of solving wicked, often seemingly intractable problems that we are faced with. So some of the learnings from the work that both NVI and Taxi have done in that space are here to see.